Thank you for joining us. I'm here with Lieutenant Governor John Sanchez. We're on the last few minutes here. We're going to try to get cover a few more things there. I know we spend a lot of time on right to work because right now that's like the hot topic there. Everyone is saying, okay, well, you know, ask him. I had several emails saying, ask him about right to work. I said, well, I'm sure I'm going to ask him because that's what everybody. Oil revenues, oil and gas revenues are going to go down because unless oil and gas goes back up, especially oil goes back up. Right now it's sitting at 40 something, 45 something, 46. So our revenues are going to get cut. I believe 30 some odd percent goes towards education. How do you think that affects education as far as the revenue goes? Now, do we?
Well, let me just say that the important thing is that we could have, if we had been not been fiscally responsible over the last 4 years. You know, when the governor and I took office, she inherited the largest structural deficit in our state's history, and we had some tough decisions to make then. Were we going to go ahead and raise taxes and burden hardworking New Mexicans, or would we go back and make sure that we led by example, you know, get rid of waste, fraud, and abuse in government, do more with less. New Mexico families were doing more with less, and they still are today. And I say that because it's important. We put away money, our reserves. You know, by law, only 5% are required. You know, at 11% over the last several years, we've had a lot of money that's been put away. And today, because the price of oil has gone down, there's no talk in.
You're talking about the rainy day fund?
No, we're talking about just the budget reserves that are required.
Correct.
And so we're not even considering having to raise taxes, even though projected oil revenue at one point extra money revenue would be 250. It went to about 141. The last report was showing that we may have $83 million in additional revenue from oil and gas. But because we've been fiscally responsible, I think the people of New Mexico are saying, well, that's good. The cuts and the slowdown to state growth and spending is not going to be that painful. We don't know what's going to happen to the price of oil. You know, we don't control those. I love your program, LNG. You know, we live in a global economy, and so what happens across the world, what affects us here in New Mexico. One thing we do have control over, though, is how do we spend tax dollars? How do we protect hardworking families? And how do we make sure that we get the most for every tax dollar that goes to Santa Fe?
And I think we're proposing another 2.3% for education or for early childhood, am I right?
Right, exactly.
Okay. And in addition to that, do you think there's anything else going on vis-a-vis, you're talking about higher education, college? I know the lottery scholarship is there. There's some other bill there. I think they're trying to.
Well, the lottery scholarship is one because I think a lot of people have been so grateful that it's been. And we're looking at ways to, you know, we kind of did a patch job last session. Long term, how do we make sure that that's going to be consistent and remain there? That's a very powerful tool for New Mexico families.
So it stays there, lottery scholarship?
Yes, it does. And we're going to have to continue to tweak it as we go along, make sure, you know, the sales have been down on the lottery, but because of some tweaks that have been made both, you know, at the state level and then individual universities that have done certain things to kind of offset some of the increases, we still think it's viable. And we hope that it's going to remain.
John Arthur Smith, I think, he suggested that they be allowed to use credit cards to buy lottery and all that. That's part of the political side. I don't get into that.
Yeah.
What do you feel about that? Do you think that would increase revenues as far as revenue goes?
Well, I'm a little reticent when it comes to being able to use a credit card to purchase, you know, a lottery ticket.
It could add revenue, though.
Yeah, it could. You know, look, the devil's in the details. We'll see how that bill goes forward. That's one of the bills that the governor and I haven't really looked at very close because it's just in the process right now. So if it starts to gain traction, we'll continue to look at it. But, you know, we just have to be careful that people aren't borrowing money on a credit card to buy lottery tickets.
And that's what the opponents would say to that most of the people that buy lottery tickets are poor individuals, and why should they be using credit cards to go out there and buy tickets? Right. And that's where you start to look at it and say, okay, is this going to affect a person on the street in a negative sort of way?
Absolutely.
And I think policymakers have a tough job as far as working on policies because there's many individuals there looking for their own constituents, and you've been a representative, so you know how tough that is when you're responsible for not only your own constituents, but for the entire state.
It really is, and so we have to kind of put aside geographical commitments, if you will. Now, being the lieutenant governor of the entire state, we have to measure and weigh and balance the needs of the entire state. And it's great. It's a wonderful opportunity because you get to hear and understand the concerns that people from the rural parts of New Mexico have, and how do you melt those together with those that live in the urban areas. So it's a challenge, but it's very gratifying
You
as well.
traveled, right? So what are you hearing from the rural part of the state?
Well,
what are they saying?
well, the issue is, are we going to let small communities wither and die? We can't afford to do that. There's so much history and culture and traditions in the rural parts of New Mexico. And so as lieutenant governor in my first term, I put almost 200,000 miles of my own vehicle traveling around New Mexico, visiting small communities. I've been to every single county. I think I know most of New Mexico. At the end of the day, people have the same interests and the same concerns. They want to make sure their kids are offered a
feed
good...
their families, yeah. Exactly.
They want to know their kids have access to good education, that economic opportunity is going to be provided for them, that their kids don't have to leave New Mexico, and nor should they have to leave those small communities to find opportunities. So one of my priorities in my second term as lieutenant governor is trying to find opportunities to bring into those small communities at whatever level there is, so that those communities too can continue to grow, that kids can stay there, because that's important to them. So that's a priority.
There's rumors, and I don't want to get too much into this. There's rumors that Intel might leave. Is there any validity to that, or is that just a rumor? Are they just saying that by 2016 they're trying to ship out?
I couldn't substantiate any of that. I can tell you right now, we're doing everything we can to make sure that Intel not only remains, but that it continues to look at New Mexico as a really good place. They've invested billions of dollars for many, many years here, and the workforce is very talented. Again, we just have to make sure that both at the state and the local government, I know I've talked to the mayor of Rio Rancho, and I've talked to the county commissioners up in Sandoval.
That would devastate them if Intel.
Sure it would. So we have to make sure that we work with Intel so that we don't give them any reasons not to. And I can tell you, talking to the leadership of Intel, they're very pleased with the fact that we have such smart, talented people here. Very productive plant up there. In that high-tech industry, it's things change almost on a daily basis. So we have to be working and be ahead of the curve, and making sure that we keep not only Intel, but every other business in our state.
I hope they don't leave, because that would devastate that area. Yeah. You grew up in Albuquerque, right?
Yeah, born and raised here.
A little bit of bio there. So you grew up in Albuquerque, family's here.
Long time. Yeah.
Wife Deborah,
yeah,
you have two daughters?
Two daughters, yeah. One out of college and one who will be a senior next year. And I can trace my family roots to this part of the country, to the early Spanish settlers. We like to say that our family was in this part of America hundreds of years before the Pilgrims, landed on Plymouth Rock. Yeah.
See, there's an individual there. So you were born and raised in Albuquerque, right?
Yeah, in the North Valley, and grew up dirt poor, youngest of 8 kids, no dad, and just lived the American dream because took advantage of opportunity that this amazing country offered. You can't replace hard work and commitment.
Correct, that's true. I need a favor from you.
Yeah.
Could you ask the governor to come on my show?
Yeah.
We'll be fair to her, just let her know.
I'll extend that personal invitation.
Give her my personal invitation, and hopefully we'd love to have her. I tried to get her during the campaign, so she didn't have time. But I appreciate you coming.
Thanks for having me on.
Thank you for coming. That's it, we're out of time. We'll see you next time. Thank you.